Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. I'm Ethan Lane Miller, and joining me today are
Barak Malkin,
RDY,
and Micol Zimmerman.
That's
Yay!
right.
Yay,
Our guest
welcome.
host today is Micol Zimmerman Burkeman. Micol serves as the director of the Teaching Impact Fellowship and the Recruitment and Leadership Development Associate at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, recruiting and developing the next generation of inspiring Jewish leaders. A seasoned experiential Jewish educator, Micol has worked to elevate and reimagine Jewish education and leadership for the last 2 decades. Micol is also a trained and ICF credentialed executive coach, certified immunity to change facilitator, and a certified GDQ consultant. An avid lover of pop culture, she uses film and television to bring Jewish text and values to life in a fusion she calls Pop Torah, which she has presented at national and international conferences and for communities around the country. Her friends have lovingly referred to her as IMDb, Internet Micol Database, based on her delightfully nerdy recall of film and television and her ability to connect any and all conversations back to some area of pop culture.
That's all I need. You belong here.
She is a self-proclaimed champion of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Micol lives in Natick, Massachusetts with her husband, Rabbi Danny Burkeman, and their 2 adorable and exhausting children, Gabby and Benny. Please join me in welcoming one of my more favorite people on the planet, Micol.
Yay!
Yay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Also, Micol, it's so nice to meet you. And before we started the actual podcast, trying to get some information about you so that we could make connections, I should have just had Ethan read the intro because there's a lot of stuff in there that's so cool. And he also private chatted me that you're Brian Zimmerman's sister, who just officiated my nephew's bar mitzvah service.
Oh, I love
Oh,
that.
that's so funny.
Yeah. Shout out to Victor Duhan.
Yeah, and shout out to Brian Zimmerman. I got to tell you, my brother Brian gets a lot of the credit. So I always say I grew up in a house of Torah, right? Because I sort of grew up with a father that's a rabbi, a brother that's a rabbi. There was a lot of Torah conversations around the table. But before my brother, I don't know if he doesn't care if I say this publicly. Before my brother became a rabbi, he wanted to be a horror movie director.
Yes.
And
so
is a
fun.
huge film nut. Actually, I think we'll talk about you all bringing Brian on.
Yeah.
And the other conversations that happened around our table were film conversations. And that had to do with Brian. And Brian really helped instill this love for cinema in me. So it's a great shout out to Brian.
That's
Yay.
awesome. Yeah,
I
so
guess-
excited to have you here.
I guess while we're Jewish geographying, Micol, I don't know if I ever told you this. Your dad married my parents.
Wow.
didn't
Wait, so Ethan, you have
know
3
that.
parents then?
Yeah. Micol,
Officiated. There we
Oh,
go.
officiated the wedding.
Oh,
officiated
okay.
the wedding. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
That was
love
so
that.
nerdy,
Look how we're
Barak.
and Ethan were you the regional director with Molly, the regional Nifty director, when my niece
was.
Molly was on regional board. So it all comes full beautiful circle.
That's awesome.
Lador Vador.
Lador Vador.
Nice. Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Micol, because we've known each other for a while too, and I know that you've got this very experiential Jewish educator side as well as this pretty nerdy film side as well. And I'm super pumped that you're here, and I'm very excited for your Torah Smash, whatever you're bringing to us. We are clueless today.
So I'm really excited about this. So my first, really, I'll say my first 2 loves, right, were really Torah, especially Genesis, Bereshit, the first book of Torah and film and television, right? Like these are my 2 loves. So I love any chance to put them together. So what I'm going to share with you today is a section of the Torah that contains my favorite character in Torah and my least favorite character in Torah. So I want to flip this a little bit on its head and give you all the option to try to guess what section of Torah could I be talking about? What
You're giving us a double. We're double guessing today. Double.
You're
Okay, so is your
guess.
just to eliminate a bunch of stories, is your favorite character God?
Right.
My favorite character is not God.
Is your least favorite character God?
But that's sometimes.
I know people that that's the case.
Love that guess. Love it. No, it is not God. Though I don't know that would have narrowed it down for you.
No, but so Genesis, is it a character we mention in prayer? Like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say like at Genesis, I'm trying to think of like two people, like Adam and Eve jump to mind, but like do you hate one of them for whatever misogynistic reason to hate Adam or hate Eve? Because
my biggest problem in the Adam and Eve story is actually God, to your earlier point, but we can have that conversation another time.
But that makes it
three
characters.
We'll have you back.
Yeah.
That we mentioned them in person. I was hoping to eliminate that and then narrow it on Noah, but
Abraham, Isaac, and Rabbi, what's the names? What do we say?
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, and then we had Bilhah and Zilpah at my congregation, and some others.
That from her tells me we can eliminate those last two.
Okay, wait. Favorite and least favorite.
Yeah.
Jacob and Esau.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, well, the rabbi gets it.
Yeah. Okay, so now which one's my favorite?
Oh,
to our listeners, I wish you could see RDY's eyes when that question was asked.
I think if you have to ask, I would have to guess Esau.
You are right. Esau is my very favorite character in Torah. Esau gets a really bad and unfair rap in Torah. Esau is honestly, in my humble opinion, the best of them. I mean, when I look at all of these characters with their dysfunction and their bad behavior and their family issues and all the things, I really, truly in my heart feel that Esau is the best of them. Esau is quite innocent. Esau is a loving son. Esau is, at least you feel an attempt to be a loving brother. And Esau is really kind of savagely tricked out of something that belonged to him. He was tricked twice, right? To be tricked of his birthright and to be tricked out of his blessing in a really heartless way has always been an issue for me when I read this story. And I've always felt this deep sense of injustice for Esau. And, when I think about this story, when I talk to a lot of people and I ask them, what do you remember about Jacob and Esau? Especially, let's say I'm talking to teens or I'm talking to adults who, in some cases, the last time they really studied it, they were kids. What they remember is Jacob is the hero of the story and Esau is the villain of the story. And why is that? Well, it so happens that a lot of the negative things we know about Esau comes from the rabbis. And when you sort of ask, like, what is it about the rabbis that they had it out for Esau? And the truth is, right, Jacob is our namesake. We, the Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, get our name from Jacob, not from Abraham, not from Isaac. We are Bnei Yisrael. We are the children of Jacob. And for those that, later...
Because Jacob is Israel for Jason.
Jacob is, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, for our friend Jason.
Jacob is Israel. Jacob is renamed Israel after wrestling with the Ish in the story. And so that's always been the story. So what did the rabbis have to do? The rabbis had to give good reason why Jacob, because the story doesn't give a compelling case for why Jacob. All right. There is nothing particularly redeemable about Jacob for much of his story. And we don't get a lot about Esau. But what we get about Esau is someone that was just sort of trying to do the best he could, be the best son that he could, follow the rules. And he just gets tricked. And he gets, and some people may say, oh, but then he threatened to kill, Jacob. And you have to ask yourself, well, when something like that happens, how often do we in anger say, oh, if I see them again, if I see that person again, and what we know, by the way, later on in the story is that even after all of this, even after all of the deceit, and let's not forget, this dysfunction runs deep. Jacob learned this, right? So this was not just Jacob that committed this deceit. His mom helped him. His mom really helped him trick her own son out of this blessing.
Already
Why it looks
argued
like
that she trained him.
Yeah,
to be the heel.
Yeah. I love that point. And so in my mind, I asked this question, right? Why Jacob? Right? So why is this guy our hero? Why is he our namesake? He's conniving, he's unremorseful, he's self-serving, he's pretty whiny. I mean, we get a lot of moments, right, when he's just really whining about his predicament, doesn't take a lot of accountability for it until, by the way, this cinematic scene when Esau and Jacob once again meet. And so what do we have in that story? We hear that Esau wants to meet with Jacob, right? This thing where there's going to be this reunion. And Jacob finds out that Esau has 400 men with him. And so in his mind, immediately he's petrified, right? And, probably because in his mind, he's thinking, maybe I deserve this. So finally, right, he's coming and Jacob is desperate to be in his favor. And he thinks about all these things he wants to get, brings all of these things to offer to Esau, but then breaks up his camp and they send them in different sections to, ahead. And then when they finally see each other and when they finally meet, there's this beautiful cinematic. I mean, come on, this you can't write this stuff. Where the two of them meet, they fall into each other's arms, they cry and they weep, and they have this beautiful reconciliation. There is no anger. There is no love lost. If anything, there's a deeper love that's there. And again, right, I'm not crediting Jacob with that. I'm crediting Esau. I mean, the forgiveness and that perfect line, by the way, when Jacob says to Esau, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God, which, do you all know which Broadway musical took that line?
Oh, hold on. Mm-hmm. To see your face is like to seeing the face of God?
Is
a
it
variation of that line?
It feels like
Godspell or JC's Superstar?
No,
it's not JC Superstar.
I think it's some like romance thing. I bet somebody saw their love and said to see your face, to see the face of God.
Porgy and Bess? They use a lot of Bible in that.
It's not, but it's a great guess.
Is it classic or this is not even now we have 3 guesses at the start of this episode.
I know, I'm sorry. This is too much. This is the educator in me.
I'm going to go with Cats, and that's my final answer.
I'm like
you
leaning
are
towards
correct.
Like,
it is Cats.
No, it's
that would be amazing.
I'm leaning towards like King and I or My Fair Lady or something, or like along those like classic romance.
Grander than that.
Grander than that. No, right.
Mm-hmm. Phantom.
Close.
Oh, that is
Les Mis.
Yes.
It's Les Mis. That's so depressing. Why would like somebody has this beautiful?
What do you mean
phrase
it's so depressing? It's called The Miserables. What did you think of the movie?
There is this beautiful line, right? To love another person is to see the face of God. Like that beautiful. Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, I've never heard it said. I've only heard it sung. That's probably why I couldn't think of it.
So anyway, right, that popular culture and Torah and mixed in, it's all mixed in. This was the original, this was the original screenplay. So, awesome. Okay, so here we have this kind of, in my view, a hero and an anti-hero. So here we have this Jacob, and this is the reason, honestly, I picked this, because this is something I have been grappling with a lot more. I'm always ready to put Esau on a pedestal and to tell everybody why all of their conceptions are completely wrong about him. But I realized at a certain point, I needed to look a little inward and say, okay, at a certain point, enough is enough. I have to figure out what is it about Jacob that just really, brings this out, right? This fury out in me and this sense of injustice. And I'm going to have to come to some sort of terms with it, right? Like you said, RDY, we say his name in prayer, constantly talking. We are Bnei Israel, right? So I do love this idea that I'm grappling with it, right? This wrestling with God, Israel, and I'm grappling with it. So that's the real question here. Why, someone like Jacob, why Jacob? Why is Jacob the one that in a sense is right our namesake, that we are as a people named after? Why does Jacob hold such a place of importance?
It's such a great question. And until now, I never thought to ask it, much less try to answer it. I wonder if maybe the rabbis who were these nebbishy, trying to be manipulative kind of mental focused people who were constantly oppressed by the Esau's of the world, who were, Esau is this action hero. This famous verse in Genesis where he eats, drinks, gets up, goes away, and spurns. And in English, it's, 8 or 10 words, but in Hebrew, it's 5 verbs in a row. So it's this like action without thinking kind of oppressor.
Interesting. So finding the one that relates to them more.
And I'll say in the scene that you described, there are 6 words in a row. 5 of them are verbs that Esau does when he goes to run and grab Jacob and kiss him.
I love it. Can you tell us the words?
It's something like he ran, he grabs Jacob, falls on his neck being the non-verb, and he kissed him. And then that word kissed has the diamonds above it in the Torah.
Like it's bedazzled. Like, what did the diamonds mean?
Yeah, it's got it's bedazzled.
That's it. From henceforth, from this moment on, anytime we see those markings in the Torah, we must refer to them as being bedazzled.
100%. The verse is Esau runs, grabs him, falls on his neck, kisses him, and they weep. So the word vayishakehu has these symbols over it. They're usually little diamond-shaped marks of ink. It's in every Torah scroll. It's in most chumashim, most books with the Torah in it. And there are tons. We talked about midrashim in the last episode. There are tons of midrashim as to why these diamonds are here. One of them being that the word is not kissed, but bit, and that God turned Jacob's neck to diamonds. And
I felt like vampire bites. Like now we've got vampire bites.
I was thinking vampires.
Was God turned Jacob's neck into diamond, and when Esau bit it, he broke his teeth, and it hurt Jacob, so he wept, and it hurt Esau's teeth, so he wept, and that's why they wept.
See what the rabbis are trying to do? They'll even take this. They take this beautiful moment, and once again, right? Why? Because Esau looks too good here. We got to make Jacob look better. Can't let Esau upstage Jacob in this moment. Yeah, these rabbis are so predictable.
I'm really enjoying. You are probably the first guest that's been like so passionate about this lead-in text, which is amazing because I asked you to come on for your nerdy side, and you've got this super passionate text that you have like totally nerded out on.
Well, this is also part of my nerd. I have 2 sides, and one is nerdy, and then the other one is also nerdy.
I could talk about this forever. I'm like, really
no, I want to guess. Can we guess?
So thank you.
Yes.
All right, so
let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the smash yet.
I have a thought, but I think it's wrong, so I want to go first because I'm pretty sure it's wrong. Because we did a recent episode on Thor, and so Thor and Loki to me feel like the pairing that you're talking about. But I'm wrong, which I'm happy to be wrong.
Loki is everyone's favorite.
Loki,
right? Like the one who is always he's a trickster, but he's now getting this redemption arc in the MCU, and so like
Loki, I will tell you, before the redemption arc, Loki was my favorite. And by the way, also my 6-year-old son's favorite character. He dressed like him last Halloween. So I'm a huge Loki fan. I love that guess. That is not the guess. And
okay.
That's
why I wanted to, I knew it was wrong.
I'll tell you my big question here that I will maybe lead to the guess a little more, because I did focus on the pairing a lot, but this idea of why Jacob, right? Why Jacob is our namesake. So it's really more of a focus on Jacob.
So was it connected to the wrestling?
It could be.
It
could be, but it's not what's in my head. But yes, there could certainly be a connection.
Can we get a charade category? Movie, film, TV show, book, character?
I don't know that I'm ready.
You don't want like a guiding topic?
I can give you another I can give you another
Okay, go
wrong
ahead.
guess.
Do it.
I mean, my wrong guess was Luke and Leia, and the question of why is Luke the one who's the hero when Leia is the one who actually has a more heroic upbringing, is more selfless, in many ways embodies more of the positive heroic characteristics.
Oh my God, I love that.
I love that too. That is not it, but I love that. And I was just asking when Danny and I were watching Obi-Wan, and at a certain point, I said to him, I was like, why Luke? I was like, why not? I had that moment, Ethan, where I sort of had this kind of, again, another one of those passionate feelings
Very
of
funny.
injustice.
Why
Luke? Because it was, George Lucas, and it was the 70s, and it was a different time. Why?
Because Luke favored his mother, and Leia favored her father.
There you go.
I have another wrong guess. It's definitely not right.
Building off of that really quickly, though, there is, and this is going to link to the previous episode that just airs, there is a Star Wars book that provides some interesting commentary on it, where the ghost of Obi-Wan meets with Yoda and they talk about training the child. And Yoda eventually says, yeah, well, I'll train her. And Obi-Wan goes, wait, what? I'm talking about Luke. And Yoda goes, wait, who are you talking about?
So funny. All right, here's another wrong guess. There's no way this is right, but I was thinking of other pairs that somebody really likes one and doesn't really like the other. I'm going to say Kermit and Miss Piggy. We're Kermit's the favorite, but he's not the best stage manager. If you really follow the Muppet story, they have to bring in Scooter to manage the back end because he cannot manage he loses the studio and the theater on his own, right? But Miss Piggy, everybody doesn't like her because she's the pig and they think she's too angry, but she's just trying to fight for her way. There's no way I would be so pumped if this is the right answer, but
that would be awesome.
Is it?
It is not. It is a delightfully creative answer. It is not. I'm not going to say it's not the right answer. I'm going to say it's not the answer I was thinking of. None of your guesses have been wrong. All of your guesses have been amazing.
All right.
Daredevil and the Punisher?
No.
All right. Can we get a category?
Yeah. Now, finally,
it's a character.
What, one character?
A character.
It's one character.
It's one character. And do you want me to tell you what
universe?
Yeah,
let's do that.
In the Marvel,
okay.
I already said it. What were you trying to say?
No, it's fine. Marvel.
Would you want publishing studio?
No, I was going to say comic book, movie, blah, blah, blah.
Talking about a single person?
So you also know, my background, which is my love of film, right? My love of film, my love of television. So it would be wise to lean into movie film.
I'm guessing no, because
is it Wanda?
It's not Wanda. Oh, Wanda's so great. Wanda's one of my favorites, and Wanda's one of my favorites because of WandaVision, not because of, in my opinion, her kind of lame treatment in the movie.
If you like WandaVision, folks, go back and listen to episode 5. I
will. That's what I'm going to do next. I didn't like WandaVision. I loved WandaVision.
WandaVision was great.
Are we going to do Hawkeye and Ronin?
Soon enough.
Hawkeye and Ronin?
Nope.
It's one character, yeah?
It's one character. And I'll tell you, this is a little personal for me because it's about my feelings about this character. So this is going to be a harder one for you all to guess.
Is it Black Widow?
Not Black Widow.
I'm trying to think of somebody who's got a dual identity issue. We already said Marvel, so it's not going to be Batman and his billionaire and the Bat figure.
Is it someone who most of us think of as a villain?
I don't think. No, I wouldn't characterize it like that. Although Barack, I'll tell you were just onto something
with the Batman and the billionaire. So the dual identity.
Iron Man.
Hooray!
Wait, what was it?
Iron Man.
Iron Man.
Oh, Iron Man.
You're 2 for 2.
Dun, dun.
And the reason, by the way, Barack, I said you're onto something is I was just rewatching Iron Man to try and get myself back into this space. And I don't think I had noticed before the parallels between Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark. So many of the parallels in their stories, right? I don't know. I missed it. I should have known it. I sort of missed it.
Yeah.
Well, they're both totally normal and use their superpower is their wealth.
Yeah.
Normals and interests. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that.
They're psychotic. They're both.
I may go more towards that. Definitely there's some challenges there in their personalities. The reason Iron Man for me really, or actually, do you like to try to guess the connection? Is that the next thing we try to do? Why? Iron Man?
No.
Do you want to?
Okay. 5 is enough. I don't know how many
I think
guesses we've done
guess.
so far.
I think all of our brains are smoking.
Episode.
He doesn't need to go 3 for 3.
This is so much fun. So for me, Iron Man has always been a challenging character. I feel that there's a lot of people that have like beloved, maybe, sort of like that first film that came out and it started everything. And I, by the way, am a huge fan of Robert Downey Jr. in general. I can't stand him in these films. But the reason I can't stand him in these films is because I cannot stand Iron Man. My feelings about Iron Man are so closely connected to my feelings about Jacob. I find Iron Man really, so he's considered this hero to me in so many ways. Iron Man acts like an anti-hero. Iron Man is all the things I feel like that I said about Jacob. There is the self-serving, egotistical, right? Selfishness, always putting so often there was growth, right? There was growth, there was development as things moved on, but always getting in his own way in a way that, and I'd say this about all the heroes, right? There's always villains, this villain, that villain. The biggest villain in any superhero movie is always themselves, right? They are always their biggest obstacles. They are always their biggest barriers, right? This idea of one of the coaching questions I love to ask as a coach is, in what ways are you standing on your own cape, right? Because that is so much of what they do, right? They stand on their own cape and they limit their potential of what they could be. And I feel like Iron Man is such an example of this. And yet I feel in a sense, and you could take issue with this, he always seems sort of the anointed leader of the Avengers. And, and he and Captain America have that, right? Like they have that clash as to who should sort of have that, who should really be anointed in that way. When I look at even Captain America and Iron Man, you look at Captain America and the purity of Captain America, right? That there is no sort of self-serving part about him. He is there for the greater good, for the greater purpose, always putting others in front, right? And that is so often a point of contention between him and Iron Man, right? As Iron Man is constantly putting himself in his own self-interest or what he believes to be, right? There's so much hubris there. What he believes to be the best way always is a point of contention between the two of them, when Captain America will be like, no, but this is for the better good. And he, will get in his way. And in that way, I see this sort of Esau, Jacob, like, why not Captain America as sort of the anointed leader? Like, he's the pure one. He's the good one. He has the sort of heart of the hero.
He can lift Mjolnir.
He can lift Mjolnir. That's right. But in the end, who was the one? Who was the one that saved the world? Right?
Well,
who was the one that they chose to save the world?
You had said that early in his arc, right? He was this person who was stubborn and selfish and whatever. And I think that's one of the reasons why his sacrifice in Endgame was so impactful, because right, proof that Tony Stark has a heart, right? It was such a backhanded thing to himself, and then he's the one who ends up rescuing everybody else at a sacrifice.
I'm gonna get behind Micol for a second though, because if we only look at the MCU, then I would say, yeah, you're spot on, and Barack, you're also spot on. The original Avengers in the comic books, like the Kirby Stanley Avengers, were Iron Man, Thor. That's the only crossover. The other 3 were Ant-Man. Oh, sorry, Hulk. That's a crossover. And the Wasp. So those were the original Avengers. And when I was growing up in the 80s, I thought Captain America was the leader of the Avengers, period, full stop.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed. Now, this information is from reading comic books, where I thought Captain America was the leader of the Avengers. So when
the animated shows, even like his name, Cap, put him in charge. Like, okay, Cap, what's next? Like even in the animated shows, they followed the comic stream for that. And the movies was the first place where they started to deviate, I think, because Favreau put Iron Man as the first person in creating this new Avengers initiative.
For
made
sure.
him the automatic first
but
character.
Favreau grew up like you and I did, Barack.
Yeah.
He grew up reading the comic books and obsessing.
No, but he placed Iron Man first and in the card deck And so, you're first to the party or you're first at the table. People sort of think you're in charge and you have to start the conversation,
Right.
whatever it is, right? Like he was the first at this party. And so everybody came in and sort of he greeted them and welcomed them. And so he became a de facto leader.
Okay. And on the other hand, so you see this a little bit kind of implicit in the movie, but in the comic books, Tony Stark is an alcoholic. Full stop.
Huh.
Yeah.
And,
okay. I didn't know that.
There are a lot of issues with that. And I think a lot of that plays into that ego and thinking of self and, self-medicating and trying to solve the problems of the universe with the suit and trying to solve the problems of Tony Stark with the scotch.
And we got that in Iron Man 3, I think it was, where like he was drunk at the party and he overbuilt his suits out. Like we got that storyline without being so overtly alcoholism.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He was fully traumatized. That was sort of, traumatic, post-traumatic stress disorder and all the attempts at coping with it.
Right.
So when you Barack, it's a really astute point, right? It's almost that we needed someone that is so obsessed with self to make that kind of sacrifice for it to be the gesture that it is,
right.
and to sort of have, I think, the purity that you wouldn't have necessarily felt with someone else. What I have come to with both Iron Man and with Jacob is that in the end, we as human beings, as humanity, we are not Esau and we are not Captain America. We are deeply flawed, right? We get in our own way. We make mistake after mistake. We so often put our own self-interest in front of others, right? In so many of these ways, it is so much about what being a human is. And even when you look at Jacob, right, and the fight with the Ish, we don't know what the Ish is, right? We don't know if the Ish is some man, if it's an angel, if it's God, is it himself, right? But I think even this idea of Ish, like this sort of wrestling with man, wrestling with humanity, it is such a poignant reflection of us that we do keep tripping and failing and messing up, but there is this attempt to try to do better. And I really feel that with both, right, Iron Man in a sense, right, like this sort of anti-hero, but that becomes the hero, right? Because Iron Man is so human, right? There's such a humanness about him. And he doesn't possess the same selflessness that so many of his fellow Avengers have. They all have their issues, but his is a really special brand of narcissism. Yeah. And I think part of that is he so much more reflects who we are. And I'll bring up just a movie that I love. So I love Oliver Stone's Nixon. I don't know if you've seen it. Those that know me, Anthony Hopkins is my all-time favorite.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Anthony, Tony to his friends. I consider myself a friend. Right? Just the greatest actor of all time, of any time. I really feel that way. And he gave one of his best performances in Nixon. I really recommend you go see it.
I'm writing it down.
There's a line, one of my favorite lines of any movie. And what Oliver Stone did with this movie is really, who knows how much truth there was to it. But the artistic license that Oliver Stone took was that so much of Nixon's presidency, so much of it was about his constant comparison of himself to JFK. And his, sort of striving to be this beloved figure when he wasn't, right? And so it really, Oliver Stone framed the story like this constant chasing after this love that was never going to come because Nixon wasn't a lovable guy. And at the end of the movie, he's staring at that portrait of JFK, that unfinished portrait, that famous unfinished portrait. And he says, when they look at you, they see what they want to be. When they look at me, they see what they are. And that quote for me captures Jacob. It captures Iron Man, right? This idea of looking at someone and seeing what you are. That this B'nai Israel is, we're not perfect. We have flaws. We have issues. We have generational trauma. But our mandate as B'nai Israel is to strive to do better, right? Is to strive to do good. And in that way, right, that sort of Yisrael, that wrestling with God, it is a wrestle, right? It's like a constant wrestling, but we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep striving and grappling to be the best that we can be.
Beautiful.
Is this I want to clarify a little bit. So we're talking about Iron Man. Are you envisioning that, based on that quote, is Iron Man one half of this and Tony Stark is the other half of this? That everybody looks to Iron Man is the person that we look to and we praise because he's so wonderful, but underneath is Tony Stark, and Tony Stark is somebody that we look to and we say, oh, that person has problems, but we should really elevate him because he's Iron Man. Like, I'm trying to figure out.
Before you answer, I was about to ask this same question, except Captain America.
I see it more with Captain America.
Oh, it's
Iron Man and Tony Stark to me, one and the same. I actually think, completely. They are not, and remember, it's just a suit, right? There's no, Tony doesn't have anything inside him that makes him different. That it's a suit. Yeah. And so, except for, the heart, the growing heart, I suppose, what he has inside him. But no, I really see it as like, why can't, in my mind, why couldn't it be Captain America who puts on the glove, right? Like, it wasn't.
Should have been Captain Marvel. Should have been Captain
Marvel.
The one
shows. Well, let's talk about that.
She doesn't need him.
Why didn't, don't get me started. I can't even with the whole end game and all the carnage and the wreckage. And at any point, Captain Marvel could have flown in and just taken care of the whole situation. Where was she? I know at some point we're going to deal with that. And she's all, I have whole galaxies to protect. But you'll excuse me. I feel like, man, it was such a missed opportunity to use her amazingness. I love her character.
Yeah. But Larson, if you're listening, Micol is sorry.
So I, when we started and you said we're basing off of one character, I originally thought of this Iron Man Captain America split as one of the pieces, but this whole conversation I've been focused just solely on, I guess, because we're comparing Iron Man to Esau, Jacob. I want to be sure that I'm getting these comparisons right. But I was so thrown. I was like, well, if he's Jacob, then who's Esau? Are we talking about Iron Man is also Esau? And so
listen, Esau in the end, I think Captain America makes a solid comparison to Esau. But even then, Esau again, Esau's the best of us. There's no comparison.
Let me ask a serious question. If Esau compares to Captain America, does Esau have the Jewish people's tush?
I will let you answer that.
I wish we could do like the Paul Rudd voice. Oh, that's a Jewish tuches.
That was a pretty good Paul Rudd.
Oh, thank you. My wife says she's modeling me after Paul Rudd.
I mean, Paul Rudd is my ultimate. My husband Danny has sort of, he's got me a little mini sort of cutout figure of Paul Rudd because he's sort of just like leaning into my love. He knows he can't compete, so he's leaning into it.
We have a photo upstairs where it's me and my wife, but Paul Rudd's face is cut out and put over my face. It's totally in love. It's completely a loving thing.
Totally.
When Paul Rudd is asked if he practices Judaism, he says, "No, I've perfected it."
It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite between two ferns. It's this
Paul Rudd. If you're listening, or anybody who's kind, we'd love to have you on. Please join us.
Amen.
I would love to go out to coffee too. If you're listening, that would be so great. We'll talk about Ant-Man. Michelle and I request your presence.
No more Torah smash. It's me, Micol, and Paul smash.
Something that I'm
go ahead.
Something that I'm asking myself is, as someone who did not read the comics and doesn't have any of that background, I was always drawn in the MCU to Captain America. Like, to me, he was always the best Avenger, and I could never understand why people were so drawn to Tony Stark and Iron Man. When Cap is right there. And he's the thing we should, I don't know if idolize is the right word. And on a Jewish podcast, I suppose that's a loaded term, but that he was something to aspire to. And Micol, you're now pushing me to reconsider my thoughts. Like Captain America is still the best, but the Iron Man is the vessel that makes the Avengers relatable. You're giving me things to ponder.
I wonder if it's because, as an individual, unless you've got some sort of chemical science degree, you could not become Captain America without the formula. But you could become rich enough to buy all the equipment to become Iron Man. If
Barack, you're buying into the American dream too much there.
A little too much.
The four of us Jewish professionals are definitely going to make enough money to be the next Iron Man.
Listen, I think you could
not even combined.
I think you could make I think you can make an argument that Captain America differs from all of the other Avengers. I mean, it's not like, in defense of Iron Man for a second, I can't believe I'm saying this, he is far from the only dysfunctional, deeply flawed superhero, right? I mean, they're all of them. Yeah. I mean, we've seen all of them essentially fall to their knees.
We wouldn't love them
that's exactly it. Mm-hmm. When you think, it's so interesting when we think about, like, for me, and I really shouldn't even enter into this because I'm just, my knowledge of Superman is very minimal, and my husband would be horrified that I even attempt to say anything about Superman. I feel like, with Superman as compared to so many of the other superheroes, I just feel like there's something so unrelatable, right? And in Superman's attempt, to blend in with us, he becomes this sort of like babbling buffoon, which is so funny, right? Like, that's its own commentary. But there is something, because, by the way, he finds it really hard to relate to that. Mm-hmm. But I really feel like when you look at so many of these superheroes, the truth is, when we think about them as so super, but they're so human. They're so human. And I think that's the appeal in so many ways, because we then we're able to see ourselves in them. Even if sometimes it can be the worst of them, we can see ourselves in them, and there's something almost attainable, right? Like, that's not so far off. From we have all the same, there's like stars, they're just like us. They take out the trash and go out in their slippers. Right? So superheroes, they're so much like us.
The housewives of the MCU.
Yeah, most of the housewives have someone take out the trash. The just like my wife does, and that someone is me. But every biblical character is exactly what you're describing, Micol. It's the flaws that make them relatable. It's the flaws that make us want to read the story again and again. It's talking about, Noah being a great person in his generation, and it's about Moses having anger issues, and it's about all of the infertility issues that the women of the Torah have, and all of these problems that we have, they have them too. And maybe that's exactly why Jacob.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would
because in that way, Jacob is that relatable figure for us. I mean, why not, Bnei Israel, like that sort of mess of a person who slowly, at a glacial pace, is starting to kind of figure out the areas where he needs to grow and try to do better. I mean, what we come to find is he didn't do so great with his kids, but, right, like, there was the attempt to try to maybe undo some of the damage, some of that generational trauma, but that attempt to just keep striving. And by the way, when you talk about all the figures besides Esau, by the way, again, like, let's look at Esau, right? Like, this sort of pure character that kind of transcends all of these others, which again is a reason why we couldn't have followed Esau to a certain extent, because it's like there wasn't enough damage there. There wasn't enough relatability there.
Two tragic flaws. One, he doesn't think. As we talked about with the verbs, and two, he marries out of the tribe.
Moses married out of the tribe.
Right, but Abraham and Sarah were trying hard. Isaac and Rebecca, wrong generation, were trying hard to keep both of their children in the tribe.
Yeah. Well, if I was Esau, I would have been like, I want nothing to do with this tribe anyway, because look at what it gets me. I mean, so I think we could also see the choices made. But what I'll say, Artie, to your point, is that, all these characters, you're right, like kind of like a book of hot messes, right?
Yeah.
But we're all created B'Tselem Elohim. Look at God. I mean, God in the Torah is not some infallible, perfect God. God is jealous. God is impulsive. God is reactive. God, chooses favorites. It's really, it's one of those things that I really see. And in that way, Jacob, right? Really reflective of a lot of that in a way. And so this B'nai Israel is us being sort of chosen to these people and these human beings. What I appreciate about it, as much as I can throw out jabs about it, is that there is something about having a story and ancestors and models that show us, okay, like we can make mistakes. We don't have to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but it's okay that we do. I mean, we're B'nai Israel, and look at Jacob himself, who became Israel. This is okay. We don't have to be perfect. We can give ourselves some grace as long as we keep striving to do better.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing, and then I'd love to hear like a little wrap up stuff to close this out. But I want to say we've talked about all these superheroes that have these flaws, and that's why we love them. And I would also point out that's one of the reasons why Marvel was so successful is that DC's superheroes, they have some of those, but a lot of the issues they're facing are villains and bad guys and robbers and whatever. And we're getting some of that now in the modern age, but Marvel's characters were created with the intention of having flaws and human problems, right? So popularly known that Stan Lee was turned down multiple times for Spider-Man because you can't have a teenager as a superhero because their problems aren't real. Like, we can't have the kid focusing on that. They've got to worry about the bad guy. We can't have a teenager worrying about his homework. It's exactly what they did. And it's so much more relatable. So it's probably one of the reasons why I enjoy both DC and Marvel. I tend to enjoy Marvel more because of those more personal stories of flaws and things in the deeper levels. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I don't enjoy DC that much. Like, Marvel's really where it's at for me. I think that has a lot to do with it. What Christopher Nolan did for Batman is that relatable nature of it, where you see the darkness of Bruce Wayne. And to me, and I think Batman always had a little bit more of a relatable character, but that Christopher Nolan, it's so funny. Like, that's the only one I really enjoy. And I think funny. It has to do with the fact that you can see that reflection of Batman. I mean, heck, we could have decided to do the Batman, the Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent thing.
Right.
In the same sort of way that we looked at these two. But again, I think it's sort of a universal story that repeats itself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I want to be respectful of our listeners' times. And so this was great, Micol. Do you have any last statements you want to wrap us up with to close this out?
Yeah, I'll say one of the things when I'm doing my Pop Torah sessions that I talk about is that being able to put this lens, I feel like, of pop culture onto Torah and Torah onto pop culture really enriches our experience of learning and our experience of consumption, right? In a way. And so what I always tell people is we have a tendency when we turn on a movie or when we turn on television to kind of shut our minds off. And what I always implore people to do is instead switch your mind on, because there's so much to be learned from these stories. And there's so many connections that can be made to the other stories in our lives that we love. So the next time that you're turning on a movie, or a television show, instead of switching your mind off, switch your mind on and, be open to all of the connections.
You heard it here first, folks. Judaism and pop culture make you smarter. Keep listening to Torah Smash for more.
And keep reading the great book, The Torah, a book of hot messes.
Micol, thank you so much for joining us today, bringing these topics to us. This was a really awesome discussion. I really enjoyed it. Do you have anything anything you want to shout out in perpetuity on the podcast?
So I'm sitting here looking at 3 awesome Jewish professionals who do such incredible things for our community. And, with my work at Hebrew Union College, it's about trying to nurture and find the next generation of inspiring Jewish leaders. And that could be you. Or if you know someone, let us know. This is really important. Listen, outside of the conversations of pop culture and Torah, which are equally important, the work that our Jewish professionals are doing for these communities is holy work. And it is, especially during these last few years, which have been really difficult, they uplifted and held a lot of communities. And we need more talented, soulful people doing this work. So come talk to me or talk to someone at HUC or any of these three if you want to consider working in our community.
Amen, Sela. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
wow.
So that'll do this all day. So that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Fogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. This episode is supported in part by URJ 6 Point SciTech Academy. URJ 6 Point SciTech Academy is the only Jewish overnight STEM camp in the multiverse. At SciTech, their campers and staff dive deeply into their shared passions for science and technology in a warm and inclusive environment. If you love Torah Smash, you'll love 6 Point SciTech, where scientific inquiry meets fun. To learn more about joining URJ 6 Point SciTech Academy as a camper or staff member, go to 6pointscitech.org. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, purchase swag from our store, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And to paraphrase Cap, we can Jew this all day.
Super nerdy.